Good afternoon. Many thanks for joining us here for midday news here on 3FM 92.7. The bulletin is live from our studio here at Adisawe Kanda in Accra and numerous affiliates across the country and Tamale. We are live on Kesmi 107.1 FM and in Wa we are on W93.5 FM around the world. We are streaming live on 3news.com. Coming up this afternoon, Roads Minister hold talks with leadership of striking petroleum tanker and gas drivers union for an amicable resolution of their grievances. Also in the bulletin, finance and housing ministers are to appear before Parliament over recent floods in parts of the country. And later, national organizer of governing New Patriotic Party apologizes to flag bearer contender Alan Kyerematen after his speech was interrupted during a final NPP rally in Asen North. We have details of these and some other stories coming your way shortly. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. My name is Godwin Asediba. We begin the bulletin from here. The Minister of Roads and Highways, Kwesi Amwakwata, says ongoing works on roads within the Tema-heavy industrial area are not as a result of the strike by the petroleum tanker drivers. According to him, the roads have been given to a contractor, but what has been the problem over the years is engineering challenges and the quest to get things right once and for all. He has been speaking at a meeting with the striking tanker drivers in Accra.
Mo who say cable metal road no no concrete road we still works road no no concrete road we no na person say road no any road wa eda DV area any this tall road na no concrete but machine la ye concrete road no machine available Emma Ubia. Your contractor to shop construction on na utumi crab back on very heavy machinery. Nti owie ehon na yedino ba ha say ka o mehye aha ye nase. But say near yehu and the contractor mo amube kan crab. Contractor no is on site except say Kafra. Yan can create a human is slow now and cock sending more person. Nayan see to say you. There's so old trip beef is slow now Ukraine.
Meanwhile, the tanker drivers insist they will not resume operations until construction works begin on the roads. George Nyaunu is chairman of the Ghana National Petroleum Tanker Drivers Union.
Near ye hwehwe say akwan a ye boso no omo behwe no ma ye hu bibi amaye eye Tema enclaves baby a depots no nyina ewo ye pia ye de bekire minister takrade baby a depots no ewo akwan tietietia na takrade de no ye tietia kumase ye tietia bope ye tietia near Muchi Kakra ni Temadie no is about 6 or 7 kilometers. Tinia Wakana Yate, na mom, asem no creno yen shanatade. Near woman is a ye de need ye casia ama yen penny for. As I say, a binumo amatre mocono, a dada ne a tietino mudia famuninti. I must say ye ni eda ye huso. Ononte ye address say, and I siso dria say. Answer na ye be fire fidie no abakwan so na kok depo akoye adwuma no ye pese ye hu se impanyifo e de o se ayeden ayoyo se ye be hu machines e wo kwan no so omu ye adwuma impanyifo amaya ti se oman no mu oha wo ho se ne minister kan no ye nkase omu ye no asphalt ana concrete sesi a emaye ne ye hwehwe ni say omo de gravel ebe guso na omo adwiri so amaye na omo compact so se ne ya ye cars no en sheki enkofa ohaw emma ne ma ye yem ehihye ye eni say ye hu ne si wa atomic junction e ye car ba ko pe ɛna nyame nkyɛ adeɛ saa adeɛ no si yɛ ni nipa a ɔmo hwɛ ɔmo nkwa sɛ wohwɛ Tema oil refinery gas tank na esi hɔ no ɛyɛ bomb kɛseɛ paa.
You just heard from George Yahunu, who is the chairman of the Ghana National Petroleum Tanker Drivers Union, who has been expressing some grievances on the state of their roads, and they're saying that they will not return until they see some machines mounted on the pathway, and construction definitely beginning to give them an interest of wanting to return back to work. But my colleague George Queening has been on the beat with the minister, who will be joining us subsequently to give us updates on what the minister has been saying on the state of roads. We've heard comments from the minister, who has mentioned that the year has been some years of roads and they're under construction and plans are underway to ensure that things are done smoothly. So George will be joining us subsequently to give us updates on exactly what the minister has been saying when as far as the roads are concerned. And before we speak to George, my colleague who is joining us currently, George, if you can hear me, good afternoon. What has the minister been saying?
Godwin, good to have me here on radio. Godwin, so the roads minister and the transport minister actually paid a visit to the union at the enclave, and so they were taken on a tour of the bad road. But I must admit that there's some sort of work ongoing there, which the minister has admitted that it's not because of the strike, but the road has already been awarded to a contractor, and he says because of engineering challenges, that is why things have delayed, and the pace of work is very slow, that he admits.
But George, has he given any timelines and commitments yet as to when the construction works would be completed?
No, please. As it stands now, they are having a crunch meeting, and after that very meeting, timelines and commitments will be made.
But how have the workers been receiving the assurances by the minister?
So for the workers, for the drivers party B, I'm not really pleased about this, because if they really want to judge from precedent, they really want to see bulldozers on the roads before they can take the minister's word. But as it stands now, the lip service, the word of mouth is not enough to have the roads repaired.
But generally, how is their absence affecting work generally on the road?
So with some of the discussion I had with some experts and people that really are relevant, they made me aware that in the next few days, which start from today, there is some sort of shortage of LPG and petrol. And they are still not budging until these roads are fixed. Talking about the implications, the impact, they are not really moved. Whatever they need done is to see these roads fixed, regardless of the impact it's going to cause to the entire nation.
All right, thank you very much, George Queening. George has been with the minister inspecting some road project, which has led to the Tanker Drivers Union stopping operations within that particular stretch, and there have been some assurances from the minister that work will soon, begin on that particular stretch. And we know that the tanker drivers have also vowed not to return to work until the road problems or issues are resolved. Let's turn attention to some other stories. The minister, for Works and Housing and Finance Minister, are expected to appear before Parliament this afternoon to brief the House on measures taken to address flooding in the country. It follows recent incidences of flooding in the Greater Accra region, Western, Eastern and Ashanti regions after intense rains last week. 8 persons, including an officer of the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, have died from recent floods in the Ashanti region. Francis Asensu-Boakye and Ken Oforiatta are expected to brief Parliament on measures to mitigate flooding and forestall recurrence. Here is the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Babin, who has made the order last week for the ministers to appear before Parliament. We will hear from the Speaker of Parliament shortly on the back of this story, but let's still remain in Parliament because the House is expected to debate the promotion of proper human sexual practices and Ghanaian Family Values Bill 2021. The bill, which seeks to criminalize LGBTQ activities in the country, also seeks to provide protection for children and victims of such acts. It was presented to Parliament on March 31, 2023 by the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee for consideration of the plenary. Well, we'll hear from my colleague Komla Kluche, who has been in Parliament on the back of this story to give us updates on the back of the LGBTQ bill that is still in Parliament. Debates are yet to be taken in place, and we know that this has been in Parliament for some time. There has been breaks on the back of this particular issue. We know that there's a part of the Parliament, a larger part of the Parliament actually, which is against this particular bill that is being spearheaded by Sam George, and we know that the Speaker of Parliament has been making some comments regarding this particular bill, saying that even if it will take him to his grave, he will make sure that the bill is being passed so that such acts will not be practiced in the country. And our colleague, who is our parliamentary correspondent, Komla Kluche, will be giving us updates shortly on the back of this. But meanwhile, the coalition of Muslim organizations, KUMOK, is urging all 275 parliamentarians to vote in support of the bill when the time comes. In a statement, KUMOK also urged the Muslim community to keenly follow deliberations on the bill. We have Mohammed Shamsuddin Shaib, who is in charge of media communications for KUMOK. Good afternoon, Mohammed, if you can hear me. Why is KUMOK so keen on ensuring this bill is passed? So, just like I indicated earlier, Mohammed Shamsuddin Shaib is in charge of media communication for KUMOK, who will be giving us updates on this particular release that they have been making concerns on recently. If you can hear me, good afternoon, sir. Why is KUMOK so keen on ensuring this bill is passed?
Thank you very much for engaging me. Your initial question puts me in a situation where I have to respond to you this way. KUMOK is keen in getting this bill passed because we thought that it is in line with our culture, it's in line with our religion, it's in line with our resolve to protect our people as leaders of the country, as spokespersons of good behavior, to make sure that we speak against the practice of LGBTQ in Ghana. So in line with our political, in line with our religious and cultural values, we thought that LGBTQ in Ghana must be kicked out of this country for good. And it has to take a law to be promulgated to be able to do so. And that is why we are so keen in getting this bill passed.
You have called on all 275 MPs to support its passage. Aren't MPs to be left alone to make their choices based on their personal convictions?
MPs are in Parliament on the basis of the decision taken in their constituencies. And in the recent report of a survey conducted by CDD, it indicated that almost 96% of Ghanaians abhor to the practice of LGBTQ in Ghana. That suggests that 95% of every constituency is against the practice of LGBTQ in Ghana. And if parliamentarians are in Parliament to serve the interests of their constituents, then they must listen to their people and vote against the practice by voting for the bill to become law.
Why did you have to wait until this time to take an action?
This is not the first time we came out with statements. We have limitations as a Muslim organization, and for that matter, you might not have heard of some of the activities we have undertaken in the previous days. Recently, we took it upon ourselves as a project, even though as a Muslim organization, we're supposed not to be partisan. Political, yes, to some extent, because politics shape the life of people in the country. We took it upon ourselves to support at least 8 of the MPs in Parliament who have come out boldly to sponsor the bill against LGBTQ. So we were even in Pram to support the re-election of Honorable Sam George, because we thought he is the one holding the mantle, holding the sword of Islam that we can use to fight against the practice of LGBTQ. We intend to replicate same when it comes to the primaries of the MPP, and that is when it applies to Ntim Pojo, who is the MP for Asin South. Okay. We intend to replicate same activity to make sure that we support his bid to come back to Parliament, not because he is a parliamentarian, not because he's an MP for the MPP, not because he's an individual who has his own values, but we think he is fighting a cause for the benefit of the people of Ghana. As I stated earlier, you will notice that from the report that CDG came out with. If 96% of Ghanaians are kicking against it, then it is incumbent on all.
All right, thank you.
The passage of the bill.
Thank you very much for speaking to us this afternoon. Mohammed Shamsuddin Shaib is in charge of media communication for Kumok, and definitely you heard his thoughts saying that they are against the act and they are hoping that the 275 parliamentarians in Parliament will vote against the act. Well, earlier I told you that we will be speaking to my colleague Komla Kluche, who is in Parliament monitoring proceedings there. Komla, if you can hear me, what has been happening in Parliament so far?
Well, what it is that the bill, the second reading of the promotion of proper sexual rights and Ghanaian family value bill 2021 has been listed as item number 8 in the motion, and it's been advertised on the other paper. What we are not too sure of is whether it's going to happen. We get the indication that the chairman of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, that's the committee that's overseeing this bill and its passage. The chairman and then the ranking are out of the jurisdiction. They're out of the jurisdiction. They should be back hopefully tomorrow. And so just a short while ago, the report that the committee made in the House, which early on was distributed to the press, one of the clerks came back and withdrew all the reports. It presupposes that it's not going to be happening, primarily because the chairman and the ranking are not in the jurisdiction. Of course, some other members of the committee can take it, but this is quite a controversial one that the chairman and the ranking to be available, but they are out on official assignment with on the ticket of Parliament, and so it means that it's likely today it's not going to happen. That the House will take the anti-LGBT bill. That's the second reason of it.
All right, Komla Kluche, but let's shift attention a bit away from this. What's happening to Jechi Kwesen? Will he be sworn in today in Parliament?
Well, it's not been listed. It's only the speaker that can do that. The speaker himself is not in the House. It's not. I'm told the speaker is on a media engagement outside of the presence of Parliament, and so. The reason I have not seen Jechi Kwesen himself in the House yet, but I can tell you that the NDC MPs have told the House, and they are all donned in their white apparel, indicating victory from Ghana North by-election. So it's just the subtle jubilation that's ongoing with what they are donning, but there hasn't been much words in terms of even speaking to it. Very Jechi Kwesen himself was in court this morning. He's gone to the appeals court to appeal the daily appearance in court. That case, I'm told, is been adjourned for a decision on it maybe somewhere in July. But as we speak now, what I can see in short is there's the finance minister who is there, and I haven't seen the household minister also yet in this. They have been someone to come to talk on the issue of floods, which are the other time directed. So a finance minister cannot present here, and then the Western Housing Minister, and it means that the issue on floods would be looked at. That's it.
All right, thank you very much. Komla Kluche is our parliamentary correspondent who has been giving us update regarding Jechi Kwesen and also some conversations in Parliament regarding the promotion of proper human sexual practices and Ghanaian Family Values Bill 2021. We know that the bill seeks to criminalize LGBTQ activities in the country and also seeks to provide protection for children and victims of such acts. But we know that Jechi Kwesen earlier has been in court, and my colleague Lord Edward Sare is joining us live from the court to give us some updates. Lord, if you can hear me, what has been happening in court?
Asediba, hi. So earlier today, when Jechi Kwesen was in court, his lawyers as you would recall, had earlier filed 2 suits, one at the Court of Appeal and another at the Accra High Court. The one at the Court of Appeal was to reverse, or was an application to reverse the ruling by the High Court dismissing the application to halt the daily hearing of his trial. Now, in court today, the presiding judge, Justice Mary Yanzu, noted that although she has seen records on the court about their motion or the application at the Accra High Court, as well as their motion to stay proceedings at the High Court, she had not been served with the motion. And so she also asked the state prosecution, led by Deputy Attorney General Alfred Chereba, if he had received a copy of the motion to stay the proceedings, to which he responded in the negative. And so she adjourned the hearing to July 4 for the lawyers of James Jachikwesin to formally file the motion to stay the proceedings before the case will go on.
With regard to the lawyers, what have they been saying?
Well, essentially, lawyers for James Jachikwesin cited that they went to the Court of Appeal because in the ruling, or during the hearing on June 16, presiding judge Mary Yanzo admitted into evidence a supplementary affidavit which was filed by Jachikwesin's lawyers that the Attorney General had made some prejudicial comments regarding James Jachikwesin's case. But in her ruling on 23rd June, which was last week Friday, she utterly dismissed that supplementary affidavit, saying that it was irrelevant to...
All right, Lord, hold on there. Let's listen to what Sammy Gyamfi has been saying.
Lawyers for Honorable Jachikwesin have filed a motion or an application in the High Court trying the matter for stay of proceedings pending the determination of an appeal we have filed in the Court of Appeal. That appeal is challenging the ruling by the trial court for the matter to be heard on a daily basis, for cross-examination to be done on a daily basis. Lawyers for Honorable Kwesin have cited many glaring errors of law which were committed by the trial judge in that ruling, and how these errors of law violates Honorable Kwesin's right to a fair trial. And so that appeal is pending in the Court of Appeal, and today we're hoping that our lawyers would have gotten the opportunity to move the application for stay of proceedings, but due to a few challenges, the affidavit in opposition to that application not being served on lawyers for Honorable Kwesin.
We just heard from the communications officer of the National Democratic Congress, Sammy Gyamfi, speaking on the back of Jachikwesin. But what has been the adjourning date so far?
So in the previous hearing, it was adjourned today for the case to continue, but because the court has not been served with the stay of proceedings motion, the case has been adjourned to July 4, which is next week Tuesday, for lawyers of James Jachikwesin to formally file the motion to stay the proceedings pending the outcome of the Court of Appeal.
All right, thank you very much. Lord Eduasare is our court correspondent, giving us updates regarding George Jachikwesin's court. Yes, thank you very much for joining us, Lord. A man on the grounds, definitely doing all the work. But the national organizer of the governing New Patriotic Party, NPP, has apologized to the presidential contender of the party, Alan Kojo Kyerematen, after his speech was interrupted during the party's final rally in Assin North ahead of the by-election. Mr. Kyerematen, who was addressing hundreds of supporters, was forced to cut his speech following late arrival of Vice President Bawumia to the venue. The national organizer has since issued a statement on the incident, and the statement goes further to say that during the final rally, which was held in Assin Breku Methodist Park to climax a campaign ahead of the Assin North by-election, the Vice President of the Republic, His Excellency Alhaji Dr. Dramani Bawumia, had to be ushered onto the premises, before the President of the Republic could take his seat at the rally as protocol demands. Unfortunately, the Vice President arrived at the time Honorable Alan John Kojo Kyerematen was speaking at the rally, causing an abrupt interruption in Honorable Kyerematen's address. As national organizer, I take full responsibility of this unfortunate lapse, and in all humility, I apologize unreservedly to Honorable Alan Kojo Kyerematen and his team for this incident. I would, however, state unequivocally that the incident was purely as a result of a communication glitch. It was not intentional and could never be a deliberate attempt to spite Honorable Alan Kojo Kyerematen, as speculated in some circles. Stringent measures will be instituted to avoid the recurrence of this unfortunate lapse in the future. The cohesion and unity of our party is very critical in these times, and I am committed to ensuring that we do everything possible to maintain the harmony and cohesion of the party ahead of the 2024 elections. Now, let's get on phone and speak. Well, let's move on from this particular story. So we had wanted to get some updates from our resource persons who we are currently having some difficulties getting in touch with them. But subsequently, if you log on to 3news.com, you get all updates regarding that particular story. We are still listening to the Midday News here on 3FM 92.7 with me, Godwin Asediba. Away from all of the political stories, the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology chapter of the Tertiary Education Workers Union of Ghana, TEWGH, has said that failure by the university management to release members' dues to them will leave them with no option than to disrupt the academic calendar. The union has accused management of the university of refusing to recognize them on the University Council and other committees as TEWU Ghana after they decided to part ways with the Trades Union Congress TUC more than a year ago. Chairman of TEWU GH KNUST local chapter, Charles Arthur, addressed the media after news executives of the union were sworn in.
You know the labor balance that if we are requesting for something and we are not getting, automatically members will say that there should be a shake-up. And what shake-up, it has so many implications, it has so many interpretations. You understand? So it could be that we can strike. It could be that management will have to, through legitimate means, will have to listen to us. If they did not listen to us, we will say use a legitimate means to take our money, because the money is our own legitimate money. It's a money that has been deducted from our own salary as our membership dues to the union. So management does not have anything cause to complain that they cannot release that money to us for us to run the union, for a mere fact that they cannot distinguish between our union and another union, which is not true to the best of our ability. They started that since last year, June, that they did it. You have been quiet, and we think enough is enough. That the university management can no longer go ahead punishing us. And if they are punishing us, we are telling the Minister of Education, who has oversight responsibility of running of the universities in Ghana, that we are using this media to draw his attention that something wrong is going on in Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, i.e. our dues have not been paid, and it is wrong against the law. Committees that we have to be on it. You understand? Those committees, management have prevented us from being on those committees.
You can log on to 3news.com for more stories. My name is Godwin Asediba. Mensah is up next with some business news. Stay with us.
A very good afternoon to you. Thank you for joining us on Business Daily. And coming up this afternoon, Police Service urged to arrest any soft-skin bullion van being used as transport cash in the country, and pressure begins to mount at some LPG outlets as consumers fear an imminent shortage of the commodity. We have the details in the next 10 minutes. Please stay. Thank you for your time. My name is Nana Akua Mensah Abrampa. Let's get to the details now. And the Association of Bullion Operators Ghana is calling on the Ghana Police Service to arrest any unarmored bullion van seen in operation in the country. Speaking to 3 Business, the president of the association, Alhaji Idi Smaila, stated that the call has become necessary to ensure full enforcement of the directive by the Bank of Ghana on the use of such vehicles in cart and cash.
We know there are going to be challenges ahead. There's our commitment that we have to comply, and it's in our interest as service providers to comply and to be able to manage until such a time that we are fine. So we expect the police to come in from today. If any van is working, certainly our vans by our rules cannot work without police. So the first thing is for the police not to even issue or agree to give us policemen in our soft scheme vans, for which they have also stressed on. So what we expect is that in case somebody decides to even move without police, that even open the field up for a very bigger risk, for which reason the police should arrest those occupants of the van together with the company involved.
That was president of the association, Alhaji Idi Smaila. Pressure has started building at some LPG outlets as consumers fear an imminent shortage of the commodity following a sit-down strike by tanker drivers. The LPG Marketers Association of Ghana observes delays in resolving the concerns of the Ghana National Tankers Drivers Union could negatively impact economic activities.
This strike is beginning to have a negative effect on us. Some of our retail outlets are getting dry. We believe that these drivers are having legitimate demand. Their demand is very, very, very legitimate. I think on this issue, we should hold the road minister and the finance minister accountable for this. And the finance minister must also release the necessary funds to ensure that these roads are fixed. If this should persist for another 48 hours, we will see a lot of queues in town. Our economy will come to a halt.
And that was the Vice President of the LPG Marketers Association of Ghana, Gabriel Kumi's voice there. We're still talking about issues on energy as government has reiterated its commitment to shift to less carbon generation sources of energy, breaking away from fossil fuels in the long term. Known as the Energy Transition Framework, a Deputy Minister of Energy, Mensah, says the country is beginning to feel the negative impact of climate change, hence the need to turn to renewable energy sources. He spoke at the media launch and opening of nominations for this year's Ghana Energy Awards.
It is a mission and a vision and a movement. It is a platform for showcasing the best of the Ghana's energy sector and advancing its development and transformation. It is an opportunity for us to say thank you all to who are making the difference in the sector every day. It's a testament to the great things that we've done over the years, the inputs that we've taken from the industry over the years, and what has made us become the champions of the industry.
That was voice of Andrew Japamesa, a Deputy Minister of Energy. Meanwhile, government has been urged to make energy sector institutions the building blocks for transitioning to renewable energy. And still at the same ceremony, Event Director Henry Tenure said there's a need to advance development and transformation of the energy sector.
In both the upstream and downstream sectors of the petroleum industry, in the generation, transmission, and distribution sectors of the power value chain, and in the overarching regulatory framework, our agencies and institutions are critical to the energy transition agenda. This is because almost invariably, their activities and operations impact on climate change or is affected by it. We simply cannot have a discussion on energy transition without institutions that are robust and focused with the right leadership to implement policy and give it real, practical, tangible meaning. We must at all times be seen to be working in sync as strategic partners in the realization of government's objective in this space. As a ministry, we are committed to collaborating with our sector agencies and other relevant stakeholders to ensure that our goals are aligned as we pursue the conversation on the future of our energy sector and ultimately our national industrialization agenda.
Away from issues on energy now to the commodities, European cocoa buyers must be ready to pay more for beans that meet EU sustainability rules, according to Cocoa Board. Ivory Coast and Ghana, which together supply about 2/3 of the chocolate ingredient, are having to set up systems to comply with new European Union regulations that ensure products aren't grown on deforested land. They will enter into force at the end of this month, though companies have until the end of 2024 to comply, but meeting requirements of the rules will come at an extra cost.
The EU at this time is looking at the preparedness of every country regarding how we are going to respond to this legislation. And when we went there, but everybody realized that Ghana had gone ahead of even the conceptualization of this whole legislation.
And that was the CEO of Cocoa Board, Joseph Boahin Edu. Just before we go, the Chief Executive Officer of Universal Motors, Subi Akad, says the locally assembled automobile industry has not performed up to expectation due to both local and global economic challenges. He said the industry started very well, but was hit hard by the pandemic as well as other external challenges, which is gradually affecting their performance.
We had very good response. There were benefits that we were having for that. Definitely already the cars became more affordable when they were made in Ghana. Our sales have improved, but as I said, we were interrupted by the COVID pandemic. We were interrupted as well by the economic situation due to what's happening around the world, the inflation and the crisis around the world as well. So people are given their attention for other things before they buy a car. So in terms of percentage, let's say we are at 20% of what we can do.
And that was the CEO of Universal Motors, Subi Akad, ending it for Business Daily this afternoon on 3FM 92.7. Log on to 3news.com for more business news updates. My name is Nana Akua Mensah Brampa Black Rasta. We'll be back shortly with more. Enjoy your lunch and have a good afternoon.